Hi, my name is Jessie Tu, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my debut novel, A Lonely Girl is a Dangerous Thing, and then read a short chapter from it. So, this story follows a young girl in her early 20s who is trying to get back into playing the violin. She was a violin prodigy as a kid. She had a breakdown in her teenage years for a lot of reasons. She buckled under the pressure. And when we pick up from the beginning of the story, she is trying to get back into playing seriously, but also trying to struggling to find her herself and her place in the world, and feeling like she doesn't know how to use her power as a young woman, and sort of exercising her sexual capital, but not knowing how to. It's also a story about female friendship, which is something that I wanted to explore through race and sexuality, a lot of sort of aspects of what it means to be a young woman in an Asian body that I found missing while I was growing up. So I'm going to read from chapter 6, so quite early on in the book, and all you need to know is that this is a bit of a sort of background into what she was like. The main character, her name is Jena, what kind of education she had while she was young. She didn't go to normal school. She was homeschooled mostly. And so this chapter sort of describes her about 1 year while she was at school. I wasn't always a dishonest kid, though I certainly wasn't a typical kid either. I do recall the year or so I had a normal life. Year 1. I was Mrs. R's favourite student. In the classroom, I sat on the carpet with my legs crossed, back straight. When Mrs. R gave an instruction, I'd bolt straight to it. I was always eager to be loved, especially by my teachers. Jena Lin was the only other Asian in my class. She was much prettier than me, though I didn't know it back then. I just thought people preferred her because her skin was much whiter than mine. I had darker skin back then. I was bark, dirt, milk chocolate. I didn't mind it though. Sometimes people thought I was Native American, which made me feel special because I loved Pocahontas. She was dark-skinned and beautiful. A white man with a plain name fell in love with her. After seeing that movie, I began to believe that it was possible for someone like me to be loved, or at least to be noticed by a man, the right kind of man. Before Jena Lin, before Mrs. R, there was the violin. My mother told me I'd begged for lessons after I saw someone playing on television in preschool. I don't remember. By the time I started year 2, I'd been playing for 2.5 years and had competed in 3 competitions in Australia. My mother wanted me to stay in school, though she'd been told by her friends that a child with my talent should be sent away. To America, to Germany. Those places sounded like suburbs or towns I'd not yet visited because my parents didn't have time to take us anywhere. I'd only seen the city a handful of times when my mother took us to my father's dental surgery in Chinatown. I forgot to eat sometimes. I was so consumed by practice. When it became really bad during the first year of touring, this was when I was 8, my mother kept a food diary to make sure I ate at regular hours. Her bag was full of muesli bars, tubes of nuts and dried fruit. I found toilet breaks distracting too. Every second away from the violin made me anxious. Later, they called me obsessive-compulsive and tried to medicate me, but I refused to take anything in case it affected my playing. When I was 6, I performed at a festival on an open stage. After my last note, the clapping started. I stayed and smiled and took several bows. But then my mother raced onto the stage and pulled me off. In the toilet, my stockings wet and warm, she asked why I hadn't gone off stage. The clapping was for me, I said. I was only 6, but had already acquired the language of self-abuse. Mrs. R often asked me to bring my violin into class, usually on Fridays. I was a stand-in for the kids who forgot to bring in their show and tells. I remember playing with half my mind occupied by what my hands were doing, the other half on the kids sitting cross-legged in front of me, chins in hands, backs curved. Some of them dozed off. Some of them looked intrigued at first, but then quickly lost interest. I hated seeing how easily I bored them. I wanted to be liked, like Stacey Williams, who was a gymnast and showed off tricks in the playground, bending in unusual places, making her body do magical, wonderful things. I wanted to be liked the way Stacey Williams was liked, but my violin never gave me much of a chance. The violin is the instrument of the highly strung alpha types, hard-working, obsessively disciplined kids. No wonder string sections around the world are dominated by Asians. In the playground, I was called Stringer. Violin nerd didn't have the same ring. Stringer followed me around that entire year. I was too scared to tell Mrs. R about the name calling. What if she told me to stop playing the violin? If I didn't have the violin, I would be no one. I worked hard to be good. Even before I could write an entire sentence in English, I could play all the Mozart sonatas with my eyes closed. While the kids in my class went on to the ovals on Saturdays to kick balls, I was practicing the violin in my room. I missed out on camps, discos, and sports carnivals, instead doing competitions, recitals, and solos. My sister, Rebecca, entered competitions too, but they were different. Modeling contests and beauty pageants. Her talent was being beautiful, which I thought was bullshit because being beautiful isn't something one works hard to get. She was just born with that face. What kind of talent is that? I was jealous of her face because it seemed to win people over straight away, while I had to work hard to get people to notice me. People only noticed me when I did something extraordinary, which was only when I was the best.